Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. I am your co-host, Tiny, and across the table is Matt.
Hi, guys.
Today, our main topic of discussion, it's very fitting, considering it's the 4th of July, will be history on the screen.
Yes.
Basically, the movies and TV shows centered around historical events that we like the most, and as well as some of the events or stories that we'd like to see adapted for the screen. And as always, we'll be talking about what we're watching and what we're looking forward to coming up. So, Matt, do you have anything to add?
Not really, just that if you guys are listening and you have anything to say, any comments or feedback, or you want to join the conversation of the topics that we're talking about, you can contact us at ovpodcast@gmail.com, where we both will respond to it and all that, and you might get a shout-out on the podcast. Other than that, do you want to move on to our first segment?
Always. Lately, the movie I wanted to talk about, I'm kind of late to the party on it. It came out last year, but I recently watched the movie Cloud Atlas.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and I'd heard a lot of mixed...
The
Wachowskis, yes. I'd heard a lot of mixed things about it. I wasn't really sure what to expect.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so how was it?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, actually.
Okay.
More than I thought I would. Because I'd heard that it was very, very disjointed and...
It seemed kind of convoluted, I think, is a word that's been kind of...
That's a good word for
complicated
it.
And
complicated.
Needlessly complicated.
That's a good word for it.
Okay.
It is an ensemble story, so that's always kind of hard to capture sometimes.
Right.
Especially in a film.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was just a really well-rounded film. I mean, it had a pretty solid script. It could use a little work, maybe. Some of the dialogue, especially, but I liked it pretty well all around. The acting is great. Tom Hanks never fails to impress.
Right. He's a pretty cool guy.
You can usually rely on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was a newcomer that I hadn't heard of. I think she is a Korean actress, if I'm not mistaken. Her name is Duna Bai or Bay or something like that.
Okay, I've never heard of her.
Yeah, I'd never heard of her either. But she was really good. She was one of the standouts. So.
Nice.
Really interesting movie.
That's cool. Would you say that the Wachowskis made up for Speed Racer with Cloud Atlas?
I can't believe you brought that up. No, I think I tweeted it. I don't think the Wachowskis have quite returned to greatness.
Okay.
But I hope they're on their way with it because in typical Wachowski style, it was visually stunning. I mean,
right, it
especially
looked like it would be.
Right, especially some of the futuristic stuff was really just top of their game. It was really
That's
good
cool.
stuff. So
That's cool.
I enjoyed it. It was just really long though.
Right, it's like
just shy of 3 hours.
Right.
Sometimes that's okay, but
yeah,
it could have used a little bit of editing, in my opinion.
Really, see, and I have nothing against long screen times or long run times. It's just that I don't want to have to take an entire afternoon to watch a movie.
Exactly.
Sometimes, and I mean, sometimes I just want to throw in a movie, which is actually a good segue to my pick for this week for what I've been watching. Mm-hmm. It's this movie that's on Netflix right now called Love. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of Love, but I haven't heard of the movie. That's kind of a bland title almost.
It is, and it's okay. It's basically the band Angels and Airwaves. Are you familiar with that type?
I'm not.
Okay, well, when Blink-182 broke up or went on their hiatus, because I think they got back together. I'm not really that into music or that plugged into the music scene. But when they broke up, Tom DeLonge created this new band called Angels and Airwaves.
Okay.
They're pretty good. They kind of have like the thing that I keep saying about them is that they need to, like, every one of their songs is like a minute and a half intro of just instruments and stuff, and kind of comes across as pretentious. But that's neither here nor there. This isn't the Obsessive Listener podcast.
Not yet.
Not yet. We're building an empire here. But Love is a movie that was produced by the band.
Oh.
And it was like fully funded, and it's a story about. It's kind of an it's a weird movie. It's basically this astronaut is stranded on the International Space Station, and he's cut off from communication with Earth.
Sounds awesome.
Right? The plot sounds pretty interesting. Yeah. But I liked it. Despite what I expected of it, I actually enjoyed it a bit. Okay. According to IMDb, the budget for it was like $500,000.
Wow.
And the visuals were actually pretty good for that pricing, for that amount. It was entertaining, but it borrowed a lot from like 2001. It pays homage to 2001, but it's to the point where it's actually just kind of ripping it off, and it's ambiguous, kind of just for the sake of being, just for ambiguity's sake.
I see.
And it's just one of those movies that I liked it visually, and I liked the storytelling of it to a degree. But you can either take it or leave it. Really, it's not gonna. I mean, it's not gonna waste your 88 minutes when you watch it.
Okay.
But
was it kind of like did it seem like it was kind of a vehicle just for them to put their music out, or was it
actually
a legit like movie? It
was a legit movie. That's one thing that I was wondering, because they did the score for it and everything, and they actually composed like an actual score. Like you can tell that it's their brand of music, but it's not like they're not breaking out into one of their songs in the middle of like an emotional sequence. It's just very kind of subdued.
Interesting.
And it was worth a watch. It's on Netflix. It's less than 90 minutes, so I mean it's not gonna.
Did that have like a wide release, or was that? Do you know?
I actually don't know. I don't think it did at all, really.
Okay. I don't think I'd heard of it at all.
Yeah, it was funny because I saw the preview for it, the trailer online like a year or two ago, and there's a line where the guy who's the astronaut on it is talking. He's sending a broadcast or whatever to Earth, and he's like, he says like, if you guys are trying to do some isolation test or some other kind of or some stress test. If you're doing an isolation test or a stress test, then it's working because I'm very isolated and I'm very stressed. And just the way they came across in the trailer is kind of bland and kind of flat. But in the movie, it actually worked pretty well.
Okay.
So yeah, it's worth a watch.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about TV shows, Tiny? What are you watching?
TV shows, I kind of wanted to mention something a little bit different, but it's actually it is my favorite television show.
Oh.
It has been for several years. It's actually The Daily Show.
Ah, yes. Okay.
And, right now they're doing something really interesting because that show is really centered around Jon Stewart.
Right.
I mean, his name's in the title.
Yeah.
And Jon Stewart is one of my idols. I absolutely love the guy.
Oh yeah, he was in The Faculty. That was amazing.
Yeah, and Death to Smoochie. Yes. But so he is the spirit, the soul of that show.
Exactly.
And right now, it's kind of funny. He's actually in, I want to say Iran or Egypt right now.
I didn't know that that's where they were doing that.
Yeah, and he's actually directing a documentary about.
Wow, I didn't know it was a documentary. I thought he was just directing a film.
No, it's a documentary. It was, I guess, inspired by a segment they did where they were covering, I think, the Arab Spring.
Wow. Okay.
And they had like a guide who was, I think he was a journalist in Egypt, and he was, I think he was actually arrested by the government at some point, and so he went there to cover that documentary style. So yeah, it's basically the first time since I started watching that show that Jon Stewart hasn't been on it.
Right, and they've got John Oliver hosting it.
Right, John Oliver, and I just wanted to mention, in case John is listening.
Either John.
Either of them, yeah, right. That John Oliver's doing an amazing job. He's really hitting it home.
I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but I'm sure that he's amazing.
I think he was born for it. I've heard him in interviews before say that he'll probably never leave The Daily Show because it's his dream job.
Right.
And so
he seems perfectly suited to it.
He is, yeah. It plays to his strengths.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love seeing him in that hosting role. And it's been really funny because I think it's been 2 weeks now that he's been hosting it, and every episode they started out by saying, "Hey, I'm John Oliver, and I'm filling in for Jon Stewart, and then they'll make up this really wild, ridiculous story about what he's doing right now."
That's great.
Like the day after that guy went across the tightrope. Across the Grand Canyon, they basically superimposed his face on the guy's body. It's just really stupid stuff like
That's
that.
Great.
It's funny, so.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really loving what they're doing with that. I think, Jon Stewart or John Oliver is filling in really well. So,
nice. Yeah. I've been hoping that, like, whenever Jon Stewart eventually retires, I would hope that John Oliver would get it.
Like 30 years from now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I just this past weekend after catching up on Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones,
guys, we're gonna put out a Game of Thrones specific episode of the podcast because it would just eat up the entire time.
Matt just finished crying.
Yes,
and he watched it like a week ago.
Yes, George R.R. Martin, you are.
He's heartless.
Yes. So anyway, following that, I started watching Breaking Bad, which is a super happy, fun TV show to get into.
Yeah.
And I've watched it before. This is the first time I've ever rewatched the series from the beginning because I want to hit all the episodes before the new episodes start.
Right.
And I'm a few episodes into season 2, and I love this show. It's this time around I'm kind of paying more attention to the color schemes because every character kind of has a specific color code. Yeah, like I think Marie is always wearing purple or something. But it's interesting to see like Aaron Paul's character, Jesse Pinkman, like he'll wear a certain color if he's like in recovery, and it's just weird to see them play up those kind of patterns.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm not really picking up that clearly on any of these, but
the story's so awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's still a ride. I'm really excited for the last season.
So it's holding up really well during this, like the second rewatch.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it's definitely doing that. So, what do you say? Do you want to head on over to our main topic?
I think we should. Should we sing the national anthem first?
You can, and then I'll edit it out in post because I would like people to still listen to this.
Jeez.
Nothing against you. I think they would just feel like it's too beautiful
yeah,
to listen anymore. Yeah.
Okay, like I said, our main topic is going to be just kind of about history on the screen. And we wanted to do it in honor of July 4th, which it's July 4th right now. And the first thing that came to mind for me, I recently watched the movie Lincoln again.
Yes.
The Spielberg movie from 2012. That movie, I think a lot of people probably weren't crazy about it because it's 2.5 hours of old people sitting around talking.
Yeah.
I get why some people maybe didn't connect with it, but I connected with it both on an emotional level and a technical level, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty much a history buff. I loved history class. I majored in it for a while when I was in college. So anything that has rich historic background really catches my attention and really.
Yeah. Same here.
I can't help but be emotionally attached to it.
Exactly.
And this was such an important part of our history.
Yeah.
It's just the only issue I have with it is just the title of it because basically
it's misleading.
It sort of is.
Yeah.
Like, it's called Lincoln, but it's just about the 13th Amendment.
And that's one of the things that I love most about it is that it's not because I haven't read Doris Kearns Goodwin's biography of Lincoln yet. I've read some of it, and it's just the writing is some of the best writing.
Nice.
I've read at least in a historical nonfiction book that's not written by Edmund Morris, who wrote the Teddy Roosevelt trilogy. Mm-hmm. But it's just a massive, massive text.
Right.
There's no way you could do a good biopic of Lincoln in a movie. So I just love that it's just this one instrumental part. It's a huge part of our history.
Right.
And it also reflects very well on his character and the kind of person that he was. So it kind of works both on those levels.
Right.
And
yeah, and like I said, from a technical standpoint, I tweeted this. I don't know if you guys saw it. I'm at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter. I tweeted that I still think it's one of the best scripts I've ever seen put on the screen because
it really is.
I mean, just imagine all of the effort that goes into passing a bill.
Oh yeah.
All the dialogue you have to deal with.
Oh yeah.
Just getting all that put onto a page and getting it to 2.5 hours long. It's a tight 2.5 hours. It doesn't drag anywhere.
Not at all. So. And to do that in such an entertaining way, also because it's a very funny script.
It is, yeah.
And it's interesting to note that I think it was Tony Kushner wrote it.
Yes.
Who he writes plays, I think. But he's also most notably responsible for the script to Munich. And those are like the only 2 scripts that he's written.
Huh.
for movies, and it's just amazing that like he has such a way with the plot and getting it, because I love Munich. Munich is a great movie, and it's a great historical movie as well.
Right.
But it's just a really I really want him to do more.
Me too.
Especially with him collaborating with Spielberg.
Right. Spielberg's kind of he's all right.
Yeah, he's
kind of
he might go places. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but speaking of which, as a side note, like you mentioned that it's 4th of July now, and I'm so mad that I didn't get around to watching Jaws. Because it takes place over 4th of July
that's right.
weekend.
Wow,
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
I don't know. I'm disappointed that I didn't think to watch that, and instead I watched Love, which I mean was fine, but
close enough.
Yeah.
Same thing, really.
Right.
Lincoln is a great movie. The acting is great as well. Another ensemble cast.
Yeah.
And just a lot of heavy hitters, especially like on the B list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in my opinion, I think James Spader is one of the most underrated actors in all of Hollywood.
He's amazing. He's really amazing. Right. I haven't watched Boston Legal yet, but I mean, our friend Greg keeps telling me about it, and
right.
I keep putting it off. But I mean, I'll watch it eventually, Greg. But
ever since I saw the movie Secretary, I was like, this guy is just. If you haven't seen Secretary, watch it. I think it's one of the best performances of the decade. Seriously.
Wow.
And he didn't even get nominated for anything for it. So I thought he was terrific in that. So I'm glad to see that he's still getting work, and I think he should be a huge star, but he's not yet. For
he
some
really
reason,
should.
So.
He has like a network drama coming out, but it's and I'm kind of I don't know what it's about, but it's like he's bigger than network TV. I think so.
Yeah.
But, and what I liked a lot about Lincoln's cast and everything is that it could have very easily been a movie where the entire performance, in terms of performances, everything would be riding on Daniel Day-Lewis, because he could carry the movie. He could do, like, you could cast the kids from One Direction as the supporting cast, and it would still be an amazing movie because Daniel Day-Lewis is incredible.
He's epic.
But everyone came to play ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sally Field really kept up with him really well in a lot of those scenes where they were kind of behind the scenes stuff, where they're like in their room and they're arguing.
And those were some of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, it was really
like that
impressive.
one where he threatens to put her away or something like that. It was just so very incredibly compelling and very.
Right.
It was emotional, but
it was. Yep. Absolutely.
Next up, I want to bring up this movie and then turn toward the production company. But what did you think of The Conspirator?
The Conspirator, it wasn't a bad movie, but I thought that it should have been better than it was.
Right. It was kind of dull, I think.
Sort of, yeah.
And
I don't know. I just think there was a lot more potential there that they could have tapped that they sort of skimmed over.
Yeah, and it's a shame, but I wanted to love it, and I wanted it to be great. But what I found fascinating about it is that it was produced by if you guys aren't familiar with The Conspirator, it's the movie about Mary Surratt.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I think so.
She was the first woman executed
by the
federal government as a conspirator toward about the Lincoln assassination. And what's interesting about it is that the American Film Company is the name of the production company that put it out, and their like mission statement or what have you is that they aim to make movies that are historically accurate, like American history movies that are very historically accurate. And it's usually like they plan on doing more obscure bits of history, which I think, just as a concept, that's something that would fill a void that is very, very prominent in films in here.
A mountain of potential. Really.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so much stuff that goes on in films, but they have in production this movie called Parkland. Tiny, are you familiar with Parkland at all?
I am not. Matt likes to blindside me with these things.
I do.
It's all right. It keeps it interesting.
Parkland it's a movie that's going to be coming out either this year or next year. I think next year. I think IMDb lists it for this year, but I don't know if it's this year or not. But it's about the hospital in Dallas on the day of the JFK assassination.
Whoa.
Right?
That's a heck of a topic right
Yeah.
there.
And Paul Giamatti plays, I think he plays the Zapruder, the guy that filmed it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's in it. James Badge Dale's in it.
Awesome.
Who I think he's an underrated actor.
I agree.
He's got he's just been in some really good stuff. I think he was in The Conspirator as well.
I think he was. That sounds right. I can't remember.
But he's in it, and the one Zac Efron is in it.
I kind of have high hopes for that guy.
Me too.
I can't help but like him, really.
Yeah, he's like, he was good in liberal arts as kind of a stoner guy, but or hippie, and it was cool.
He hasn't given me a reason yet to hate him.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and I liked him in 17 again.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was funny. It was actually funny as a side note. I saw this article that basically kind of talked down about him and his career. Like, oh, he's been trying to do these heavy roles or these more meaty roles, but he hasn't impressed me yet. Kind of that kind of tone. And it was funny because they said, what did they say? They said, oh, he's been choosing these really edgy roles, such as his role in The Paperboy and the Lucky One. And I'm like, okay, I haven't seen The Paperboy, but how is The Lucky One edgy?
Yeah.
It's a Nicholas Sparks movie.
That's the opposite of edgy.
Right. So clearly this guy didn't do any of his homework. If you're listening now, still retweet us and everything and get the word out on the podcast, but do some research when you write stuff. But so I like Zac Efron. I think he has a charisma that could go a long way if he chooses to do more serious stuff, which it looks like he's doing. And
if he applies it in the right way.
Yeah,
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. I'm looking forward to that now.
Yeah.
Parkland. Okay.
Parkland.
Cool.
Yeah. What's next on your list?
Next on my list is a miniseries. In my opinion, it is the greatest miniseries in the history of television. It's called Band of Brothers.
Oh, Band of Brothers.
Nice try.
Sorry.
Let's squeak it in. But Band of Brothers is just... Yes. I can't say enough good things about that show.
It's incredible. I need to break out the Blu-ray and get through the special features because I know that you said it's stacked.
It is, yeah. They really did their diligence on that series.
It's just that scene where they find the concentration camp. That's that's one of the most haunting moments in television for me. And what makes it even more just unbelievably insane is that it's real. So it's just mind blowing. Mm-hmm. It's very powerful filmmaking.
Absolutely. And in my opinion, if you haven't seen it yet and you want to watch it now, the only way to go about doing it is watching it in Blu-ray.
Absolutely.
Because it's visually, I mean, just imagine I'd say it's visually comparable to Saving Private Ryan because
Absolutely.
They use a lot of the same sets and everything because those were done around the same time, same production company and all that stuff. So that's the only way to see it, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And if you're not familiar with what Band of Brothers is, it's about I think it's the 102nd Airborne.
Maybe
during World War II. It's about how they invade Europe in the 1940s during World War II, and it's about the whole one of the companies, Easy Company, from this unit, and it basically follows them from when they train all the way to when the end of the war.
Right.
And it seems like that would be hard to capture all that, but they put it together perfectly in 10 episodes.
Oh yeah. And if you want a gauge for just the quality of filmmaking of it, just imagine like all of Saving Private Ryan, like the high quality filmmaking that Spielberg employed for it, sustained through 10 episodes.
Absolutely.
Like, throughout. It's just it's unbelievable.
Right.
The amount of work that went into that, and just it's really something.
Absolutely. And it's got, again, I always talk about actors because it's something I always focus on, but it has a really great cast.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because the cast is basically, at the time, it was basically unknown.
Yeah.
I think the biggest name that was in it was the guy from Office Space.
Yeah, Ron Livingston.
Ron Livingston was the biggest name in it at the time. and he was great in it. He did a really good job, and Damian Lewis, I think it's the role that kind of put him on the map, at least for for American audiences.
I still think he would make a great Stu Redmond in the adaptation of The Stand if it ever gets made.
I can see that.
Yeah, I thought that when I read the book, but I digress.
Yeah.
It also features David Schwimmer.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that first episode where he's kind of the
like the drill sergeant.
The drill sergeant for the thing, and it's like he's just a real like aggressive guy, and it's really well done. Like you wouldn't imagine that out of Ross Geller,
right? It's hard to not picture Ross, but he kind of puts you at ease.
Yeah,
as far as acting goes, pretty quickly, and you're like you start seeing a whole new character there.
You really do, and it's something really. It's something else,
right? And I think that the biggest point I wanted to make is I think it's one of the best examples I've seen of camaraderie captured on the screen between characters. I mean, it feels like these actors, not the characters, but the actual actors, have all known each other for 10 years, and they've been through war with each other, and they worked so well together.
A really good on-screen chemistry with everyone. It's really well done. To counter that, what do you think of the Pacific?
The Pacific, the Pacific it's kind of the other bookend, if you will, of that story.
The spirited follow-up, sort of, even though it takes place before, but it's
it was incredibly well done, and really great cast again. But I think it's not necessarily the downfall of it, but what I don't relate to the Pacific as much as Band of Brothers because it didn't have that camaraderie in it.
Yeah, it did lack that. They didn't follow anyone from beginning to end there. It's kind of. I mean, they spend episodes in Australia just hanging out. It's kind of.
But I think that's just a characteristic of that story because that's how it really was in the Pacific fighting during World War II. Those units didn't really get to stay together because so many of them were killed in action, and they had to just fill in the holes of the different units with new soldiers and Marines, and it's unfortunate, but that's the reason why that camaraderie isn't there because I don't think it was there in real life. So but it's not a fault of the show. It's just nature. That's just how it is.
It had a lot of good stuff in it, but you know, I agree. It wasn't going to overtake Band of Brothers, but it didn't disappoint me either. So
no, not at all.
Yeah. It was kind of funny because we're talking about history and movies, and IMDb had this list of like the most like examples of history and cinema and all that, and the top one on the list was The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
Gosh,
which it's notoriously historically inaccurate. Like, I think the final battle scene is two separate battles in the movie. That's one less thing. That's a travesty that's at the top of the list. Yeah, because there's so many other things that are much better than that. Oh yeah, and I read that the main character played by Mel Gibson is based on, or was at least originally based on a guy who like a slave owner who like raped and killed his slaves or something like that. Jeez. And I didn't see that in the movie. So would have been a totally different movie. It really would have been. But also had Heath Ledger, and it was a watchable action movie. I thought. I mean, it was bloody and gruesome. And Jason Isaacs as well. Yes, and he's great. He's another really underrated actor in my opinion. Really is. He was great on the Showtime show. Showtime, yeah. Brotherhood, which unfortunately was canceled, but he was great in that. So. Yeah, I gave it one episode. I didn't really connect to it the way you did, but maybe I'll try it again. Yep, it's a good one. Yeah. So, anything else to say about the Pacific? Not really. There's not really much else to say about it. Right. But, that had a pretty good cast as well. It did. James Badge Dale again. Yeah, he comes up great. There. He was great. Yeah. And even Joe Mazzello. Yeah. Who I hadn't. He hadn't. Everyone just knows him as the kid from Jurassic Park, right? Because he hasn't really done much. But he was pretty good. As I think he suited that role pretty well. He really did. Kind of a sort of like he was really good. Kind of a nerdy kid almost, not really like the hero type. Yeah.
but he filled his role as a soldier really well.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, he was like the very religious guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And it was a good juxtaposition of having him and Lecky as a kind of a more
pretty secular.
Yeah,
sorta.
secular kind of more introverted kind of like guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good thematic element to it. A good way to bridge the two stories is having that one scene where they met. It was just a really explosive scene where they're in the tent, and they're talking and all that, and then I think they start talking about God. I can't remember the specifics.
A little bit, yeah. It didn't get too deep, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was a good moment in the miniseries.
Cool.
There's some other stuff I need to watch. I need to see JFK. I still haven't seen it. It's
the Oliver Stone one.
Yeah, I'd like to see it, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and I need to. That's cool. I need to rewatch 13 Days.
Oh yeah, that's a good movie.
That's such a tense movie, and it's the cast again is really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I need to see that again.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, next on my list is it's another miniseries. I think the reason why we pick so many is because it's just I think that's one of the best ways to depict history is with a series.
It really is,
because there's always so much detail. But the next one is John Adams, the HBO show, and what's kind of ironic about everything that we've mentioned so far is it all involves Tom Hanks to an extent.
It does. Yeah. He's the linchpin of everything. He's like the
Even the movie Lincoln, he was like four times removed from being related to Abraham Lincoln.
He wasn't he?
In real life, yeah. So it's kind of funny. But John Adams was produced by Tom Hanks' production company.
Right.
And I think that came out in like 2008 is when that aired on HBO.
That sounds about right,
yeah.
Directed by... Did Tom Hooper direct all of them?
I'm pretty sure, Tom Hooper did all. I think it was like 7 episodes.
Yeah.
I think he did all 7.
He's amazing. He went on to do that one movie, Les Miserables.
Yeah.
That one musical that some people liked. I don't know. I haven't really heard much about it.
Absolutely.
I'm being sarcastic. Don't send us feedback on that.
I think Tom Hooper is slowly but surely turning into like the master of wide shots.
He really is.
For the longest time, it was Stanley Kubrick.
Mm-hmm.
His camera work was amazing when he used wide angle lenses and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Watch any movie he ever did, and you'll see it. But I think Tom Hooper doesn't necessarily surpass Kubrick in that sense. I don't think anyone ever will.
Right.
But I like the way he places the actors and his sets inside his wide shots. I think it's a very unique signature in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
That was on full display in John Adams. And working with incredible actors like Paul Giamatti, David Morse, Tom Wilkinson, Stephen Delane. Everybody, Laura Linney they were all just out of this world in it. It was a really, really, really great show. It was similar to Lincoln in that it's mostly just people talking.
Yeah.
But, it was like watching speeches.
Yeah.
It
was just the production value of it was just incredible.
Right.
Like, I think that was, when I saw it, it was just, I didn't think that they could do that. Like they could recreate that world in a miniseries. It was just a really well made miniseries.
It's hard to believe that they pulled it off, really.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah. There was something else I was going to mention.
Yeah. Well,
as a tangent, real quick,
sure.
As a side note, you talked about Tom Hooper possibly not surpassing, but being on the same page as Kubrick. What do you think of P.T. Anderson's filmmaking in terms of wide angles and stuff? Because he's almost at a point where he's almost emulating Kubrick to an extent. It's a very Kubrick feel, but I mean, how do you feel about him?
He's channeling. He's like Kubrick if Kubrick did character studies.
Yeah,
because that's what P.T. Anderson basically does.
Right.
Especially if you look at his best works, at least in my opinion, Boogie Nights, and then There Will Be Blood,
right.
which I think is one of the best movies of the decade.
It really is, and it's to bring it back to history. I guess it's kind of an interesting look at the oil rush or whatever history.
Not necessarily a historic film, but an interesting time period.
Yeah, it's an interesting time period.
An interesting time period to depict that kind of character who's just ruthlessly ambitious. I mean, just absolutely, just an awful person. He's not even an anti-hero. He's just the main character is an antagonist. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. I need to watch it again. I need to buy it on Blu-ray because that's a Blu-ray worthy movie.
Absolutely.
The next movie I wanted to talk about is a little different, but I appreciate these movies for they're like blockbusters. And I appreciate them for the level of history that they include history in them. I'll stop putting it off, but I'll just say National Treasure and National Treasure Book of Secrets.
Yeah.
I love these movies. They're super fun.
Yeah.
And just the inclusion of having the main character be this history buff who keeps spouting off these obscure facts about history and using them to uncover clues. It's really cool because I can see kids seeing this movie and being like, "Oh, I want to learn about history now." And I love that. It's an appeal that I mean, they're not, as opposed to people watching Twilight and thinking like, "I want to move to Forks, Washington." It's like these ones are like, "I want to learn all about Thomas Jefferson." And all
Absolutely.
That.
I think that was a good. It was a good way to deliver history. I think.
Yeah.
It made it really fun because, like we said about movies or shows like Lincoln and John Adams, where it's just people talking.
Yeah.
This is different, and where you throw in adventure into it, and it makes it a whole different animal.
It makes it much more accessible by the masses. Because I mean, you throw John Adams or Lincoln at someone who's just not that into history or isn't that into the time period. I mean, they're not going to get past an episode or a scene.
Exactly.
But you throw Nick Cage into the mix, stealing the Declaration of Independence, and they're all for it. And that's not a slight against those people. I'm not trying to be like this pretentious person about it. It's just a cold hard fact that, I memean, that's more entertaining because it's an entertaining movie. That's the point of the movie instead of delivering the history just as the history of it.
Right.
I really like them. Like, and there's even like scenes where it's not like they're just throwing in these like bizarre facts and everything, like Benjamin Franklin about daylight savings time.
Yeah,
like that. That's a great scene. But
that was so funny.
Yeah, but there's also like this scene where they bring the Declaration back and they read it, like they unfold it at the
Library of Congress.
No, it's at the where the Liberty Bell is. Why am I spacing this? In Philadelphia.
Oh,
it's where the First Continental Congress was.
Yeah,
it's where they signed it.
Wow, you can really tell where history
goes. Yeah. So the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Yeah, I love history, and I love that National Treasure makes history accessible. Oh, where was that one place? No, but there's that scene where they're reading it, where it was signed, and like you can, like Nicolas Cage is like, you realize the last time that this was here was when they were signing, and it's just this real. It inspires an emotional. It inspires a love for history that is. I mean, I don't know. Like, I got more into history after high school, and like I'll read these books and everything, and I'll read like about Teddy Roosevelt and about the Constitution, all that stuff, and I'm like, I should have paid more attention in high school, or I should have paid more attention in history because this is all really fascinating.
Yeah, I feel that way pretty regularly.
Yep.
And then last on my list is actually something that I'd like to see get adapted for the screen,
yes.
And I think it would be best. Typically, I said earlier, I think, miniseries are better for history, but I actually think this would work better as a film. It involves the writer John Meacham, who I have very mixed but strong opinions about John Meacham.
Right.
I don't think he's a bad writer. I just think he chooses these really great topics to write about. And I'm like, I'll hear about him, and I just think I can't wait to read that. That's going to be so interesting.
Yeah.
But then just his delivery is just sort of off. I wish I could elaborate. I don't know. I've just never been really fully encapsulated by his writing. I don't know why. And I've read several of his books.
Well, thanks, Tiny. Now he's not going to be a guest on the podcast.
Oh, no, John, please.
Anyway.
Just lost it. But anyways, he wrote a book called Franklin and Winston, and it's about the relationship between Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Winston Churchill during the Second World War. And if you know about our involvement with the European front of the war, we didn't get involved until really late,
Right.
And during, from 1940 until 1943 or 4, when we actually got involved in that part of the war, Winston Churchill was just begging the U.S. to get involved in the war.
Yeah.
And, we were providing them with, supplies and money and stuff, but they really needed the troops.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people say that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was really delicate in how he handled that, keeping us out of it and everything.
Yeah.
And that's the book that John Meacham wrote is really just about their relationship and how there's a lot of theories that, like one of the more interesting theories is that Winston Churchill really did not like Franklin Delano Roosevelt at all. He just
really?
he almost I don't know if people say that he hated him, but they say that he didn't like him because he wouldn't get involved in the war. He wouldn't help them out against the German army.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of people who think that he would go publicly say all these really nice things about FDR, but in private he hated him because they wouldn't help us out. Of course, there's not necessarily any concrete proof to prove that,
right?
But it's a theory and it makes sense. And
nice.
And John Meacham spells that out in the book.
That's cool.
And it was really interesting. He used one of the ways he wrote the book is he used a lot of correspondence.
Nice.
Between
I like when they always have like concrete
right.
documents and stuff to draw from. It's really strong.
Right, as opposed to just stories or word of mouth or whatever.
Anecdotes. And
right,
stuff.
Right. But I think that was the strength of it is it was a lot of like correspondence between Winston Churchill and Franklin Delano Roosevelt's wife and the other supporting characters, if you will, of that story. And I just thought it was really well done. It's really interesting. I think if you put it to film, it would be so cool to see all the different attitudes of like the two main characters working with one another.
Okay. And
just how they worked with one another, how they, some people think they didn't like each other or they did. It would be like a dance put on film, I think, between the two characters.
That would be really cool.
I think it'd be really cool.
Do you have any thoughts on casting for that?
Casting, see, I saw, I can't think of his name right now. He played him in he played Winston Churchill in an HBO film.
Oh.
Gosh, I can't
remember his name.
Gleason.
He was also in 28 Days Later.
Wow, it's pretty bad we can't think of his first name. We're really getting stumped today.
I keep wanting to say Jackie Gleason.
No.
I know who you mean, though. And people listening can... there's a website called imdb.com. Just scream the name at us, please.
Please. But he was great as FDR in that HBO show, the HBO movie. And so I see him in that role. FDR, that would be tough. I don't know. I haven't seen... what's it called? Hyde Park on the Hudson? I haven't seen that.
Yeah, that's right.
I haven't seen that yet, but Bill Murray played FDR in that.
That's right. It was Bill Murray in that. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm interested. What do you think of John Voight in Pearl Harbor? He was a good FDR.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's a great historic movie.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a moment.
Michael Bay doing history.
Yes.
Jeez. So I don't know. I just think, and one of the better things about that book is it's actually a pretty quick read. It's not overbearingly long. It's
right. He's kind of John Meacham is kind of an exercise in brevity, isn't he?
Sort of.
Right.
Sometimes it depends on the different subjects he picks. Like one of his more famous books is a book called American Lion, which is about Andrew Jackson. And it's pretty interesting for I read 200 out of the 600 pages of it, and it was just, the beginning was really interesting and really took me, but after that he just kind of petered off, and it didn't, I don't know. I just have, like I said, he's not a bad writer, but it's just not a style that suits your reading habits. Right, yeah, I think so.
And it was Brendan Gleeson.
Yes. Okay. If you're still listening, it was Brendan
Right.
Gleeson.
Yeah, from 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
But I just remembered, I watched, and we talked about this off the air, and I'm going to post about it on Monday, but I did a double feature on the 3rd as a pre-Independence Day double feature of mine, of the HBO films Recount and Game Change.
Nice.
Yeah, and Recount is about the 2000 election and presidential election here in America for our listeners in other countries. It just the 2000 election and the hanging chads, all that stuff. It has Kevin Spacey and Dennis Leary, and I didn't really connect to it that much. I know, Tiny, I know you were a huge fan of it.
I really liked it, yeah.
But I don't know. It just felt like the politics of it just felt a little one-sided. They didn't really give due credit to both sides. Like it was very clear, like, okay, the villains of it is the Bush campaign, are the Bush campaigners, and the heroes is the Gore people.
It could have been more objective.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even have wanted it to be very even objective, because, I mean, yeah, sure, I mean, it played out the way that it played out. But I just wish that they would have shown more of the Bush side of it, even if they were going to make them villains.
Right.
I just felt like there was something lacking there.
That's a fair argument, really.
Yeah. But I really liked Game Change a lot more.
Yeah.
It was just, like, Julianne Moore gets all the credit for just disappearing into the role of Sarah Palin.
Absolutely.
And it's all due, because, I mean, she was just incredible. Like, she nailed her performance was amazing. But I feel like that almost overshadows the work of Woody Harrelson. I thought he just killed it as the political campaign manager of the McCain campaign manager. I just thought he was just incredible to see them play off each other, because like Julianne Moore playing Palin as this naive person that she was. And yeah, it is. It's just amazing to see them go back and forth, and see Woody Harrelson just reacting to the things that she does. But just to see the way that she acted it was amazing, because I don't know, I wasn't there. I paid attention to the campaign and all that, but I wasn't like involved with it. But so I can't tell how much of it is just sensationalized fiction. Right. But just the way that it plays out just makes me think not much of it was.
Which is sad. Cause...
Yeah, it's a really sad statement on politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like today. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I'm just not a very political person, because I honestly think that politics is just like the world's most successful reality series. And it shouldn't be, because politics is one of the most important things about our society. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it's sad, but it's really interesting to see how they knew that she was a horrible candidate, and they just, instead of cutting their losses and picking someone else, they were like, all right, let's, like they even say, like, we have the best actress in politics right now. Let's just give her lines to memorize.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad, and it just made for a really good experience for me as a viewer. I just thought that it was really well done.
Absolutely, it's great. I loved it too.
Did you ever watch A Special Relationship, or The Special?
I did watch that. Yeah.
Yeah, with Tony Blair and was it
Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton, yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting movie. Another case of perfect casting. Michael Sheen.
Yes.
Played Tony
Sheen
Blair.
Is so great.
Yeah, he was great. And then, was it Randy? Or no, Dennis Quaid played Bill Clinton.
Not Randy Quaid.
Not Randy. No. That'd have been hilarious. Uncle Eddie as president.
Uncle Eddie as president. Wow.
But I also think that, talking about underrated actors, again, I think Michael Sheen is one of the most underrated. Amazing. God, he's great.
Yeah. We need to talk about Frost Nixon.
Oh, that's true.
Now that we're on that.
Right.
Oh, man, that movie was great.
Yeah. But A Special Relationship was good, but it was a little too... It needed a lot of work. It had some... It was really... All of the quality comes from the performances. Even Dennis Quaid, who I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
He was actually pretty solid as Bill Clinton. Yeah. But the whole movie was carried by the performances.
That's cool.
You're not missing a whole lot. But,
right.
Frost Nixon was substantially better.
Yeah. I wish I could have seen like the stage play because I can't remember the guy's name that plays Nixon, but he was like in the stage version of it. Mm-hmm. Like he's from that, and he's like he just knocked it out of the park.
Oh, he was great.
And to see them play off each other, him and Michael Sheen, was just great.
Yeah. Frank Langella, is that his name?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, oh wow, what is his name?
Ron Howard.
Yeah, Ron Howard. He directed it, and wow, what is his name?
We're struggling today.
Yeah, we are. It's been a long one. But anyway, I always forget Moon, the guy from Moon.
Oh, Sam Rockwell?
Sam Rockwell, he's in it, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't
he's
seen that
great
since
too.
It came out,
yeah, me neither, but...
Sam Rockwell, yeah. Again, great actor.
Great actor. So. But, yeah, so that's a good one. And as far as movies that I want, or topics that I want to see get covered is Theodore Roosevelt. Edmund Morris, I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, that Edmund Morris has written three books about Teddy Roosevelt. The first book covers, it's called The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt. It covers his birth to his presidency. Then Theodore Rex,
Theodore Rex. I think
Theodore
that's
Rex,
right,
yeah. No, I think that one. Oh, yeah, Theodore Rex is his presidency. Sorry, We're struggling again. And then the third one is Colonel Roosevelt, which is all his post-presidency stuff. I haven't read the third one yet, but the first two are two of the best historical nonfiction books I've ever read.
Yeah.
And just the subject matter is just, like, you can make an entire television series about Teddy Roosevelt because he did so much. He was a rancher, a police commissioner. He was all these things.
Yeah.
Even before he became president,
Wasn't he the governor of New York? Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing subject matter. And this is going to seem weird, but I really want... Nick Offerman to play Teddy Roosevelt. I think he just has that look, and it would be kind of cool to see him take a dramatic role. I mean, I know he did a dramatic role in his 2-episode stint on 24 as a redneck xenophobe.
He was in one episode of Deadwood as well.
Oh, he wasn't he? I remember you mentioned
he's almost unrecognizable, and
really?
Yeah, he was crazy in it.
Yeah, I didn't really recognize him in 24 either. Like, it just blew my mind. Like, Ron Swanson was in 24.
But I agree. I read the only one of those I read was Theodore Rex, but I agree. Like it's begging to be adapted.
It really is
because he was such a Theodore Roosevelt was such an incredible president. He there's no other president like him. He was very very confrontational. He didn't take crap from anybody. He really. He stuck to his guns. Literally, he carried a gun on him. So he was just a really interesting guy, and there's no way you could see that character on the screen and not be encapsulated by him.
Right.
And just
And it demands a really well suited actor. I mean, you're not gonna get. You would need casting would be just. It would be hard to find the right person to play him. Nick Offerman or not.
Yeah, you couldn't have Tobey Maguire playing him.
Right, and you can't have, I mean, I don't think Matthew Fox can handle it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think Teddy Roosevelt cried that much, considering how much he cried on Lost.
God. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
Off the top of my head, I think we pretty much covered every historical movie and TV show in existence.
Yeah, every single one.
We might get some flack for only concentrating on American history.
That's true.
But I mean, we'll do another episode down the line.
Yeah, we are Americans after all.
It is, and it is as we mentioned, we are recording this on the 4th of July. So
right, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So, is there anything big that you're looking forward to coming up?
Well, as far as TV shows. I am really looking forward to Boardwalk Empire.
Nice, me too.
We've mentioned it before on the podcast, and we're liable to mention it many more times. But I've seen one of the teasers for it, and I just love that they're bringing in Ron Livingston's going to be in this season.
Nice,
and also Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
he was in Source Code, and he's also Felix Leiter in the latest iterations of James Bond movies. And he's just a phenomenal actor.
Yeah,
he's really great.
I agree. I love watching him.
Yeah, he has this line in the trailer that's something like "Only kings understand each other" or something. And it's just like it's going to be interesting to see how he interacts with Nucky in the next season, and it's going to be hard. I don't know if he's going to be a villain or if he's going to be an ally, but either way, it's going to be hard to bring about any big name actor, any actor into the show after Bobby Cannavale.
Man, he was great.
He knocked season 3. He was the villain, and he knocked it out of the park.
He was so vicious.
Yeah,
he was like a pit bull on the screen. He was really scary but brilliant. Like even the way he wasn't just like some meathead who attacked people.
He had a very interesting run on the series, and it was really amazing, and especially after season 2 kind of it dumped some characters. Like there was going into season 3, it was kind of there was a lack of some characters. Like some characters kind of were gone. So it was a neat way to bring together the season back for a third season, because it could have been kind of a disaster given how season 2 ended, which I thought season 2 ended brilliantly.
Oh yeah, me too.
But it was an interesting way to go from there.
Right. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What about movies?
The first thing on my list for movies is actually Elysium.
Yes.
I think we mentioned it in our first episode, but we didn't talk too much about it. I like the trailer quite a bit.
I haven't seen the latest one, I don't think.
Oh, yeah.
But
the latest one reveals a little bit more about the plot. Not too much, but a little bit more. It actually made me a little bit more excited for it.
Nice.
I think I saw it before. When I saw World War Z, they showed the latest trailer for Elysium. And I think, man, I'm pretty excited for it. You know, I'm looking forward to see what Neil Blomkamp can do with a huge budget.
Yeah, because District 9 was kind of low budget.
I think it was technically an independent movie.
Really?
I might have that wrong, but
interesting.
But that was a cool movie with some great effects, and there was no unknown actors in it. So, and that was a lot of people loved it too. I mean, it got nominated for an Oscar. I mean,
it did, didn't it?
It's a big deal. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do with that kind of movie. And I always love watching Matt Damon.
Yeah, Matt Damon is awesome.
Matt Damon.
Call back to episode 1. But anyway, and also what is his name? William Fichtner is in that movie.
Oh,
I don't know how substantial his role is. I just heard him on Nerdist.
Nice. He's a good character actor.
He's a really great character actor. Yeah. He was awesome in the opening scene of The Dark Knight. But he's a great actor. I'm looking forward to seeing him in it, whatever his role is in it.
Cool.
As for movies, for me, for what I'm looking forward to, I'm really looking forward to Gravity.
Nice.
Yeah, the new Alfonso Cuarón movie. It's his first movie since he did Children of Men, which far and away one of the best movies of the past decade.
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah, just the way that he does the long takes is just, it's masterful. It's really incredible.
Groundbreaking work.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, yeah.
So Gravity, if you guys haven't seen the trailer yet, is a movie with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. They play like astronauts, and they're kind of in low Earth orbit, like right outside of Earth. And something hits their shuttle or their spaceship or whatever, and it's chaos from there. The trailer just plays out that it's basically them trying to get back to Earth or trying to salvage their shuttle, and it looks incredibly intense and just very, 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 very well done.
Awesome.
Yeah, and at the end of the trailer, it just shows them kind of floating freely in space, and it's that on a profound level, on a personal level for me, that's like one of my deepest fears is just the thought of floating freely in space is just terrifying.
That'd be so scary.
Yeah,
a horrible way to die.
Oh yeah, so that releases in I think October, and it's going to be in 3D and IMAX, but that's definitely going to be an IMAX viewing for me. And
cool.
Yeah, so I can't wait to see it.
Nice. All right.
Is there anything else?
I think that about wraps it up.
All right, sweet. Well, this was episode 3 of the Obsessive Viewer podcast, in case you forgot. Thanks for listening. And again, if you guys have any feedback, any comments, any Any
questions.
suggestions for topics you want us to cover or whatever, feel free to give us an email at ovpodcast@gmail.com. We're a little cheap to get the obsessiveviewer.com email domain. Well, cheap, and I don't know what I'm doing to do it. So if you want to email us with suggestions on how to do that, feel free. As always, Tiny, you can find him on Twitter at ObsessiveTiny. And you can find us on Facebook at The Obsessive Viewer. And as for me, you can find me on Twitter at Obsessive Viewer. And, check out the blog, obsessiveviewer.com. And as always, I'm Matt Hurt, and I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun.